Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Since you mentioned cars.
I didn't even have a chance for a rebuttal. In fact, I didn't even have a chance to take a breath.
Well, I wanted to make sure, we responded to you mentioning cars. Class, I'm delighted to be broadcasting with my very dear friend, Rich Scheben. And if you get a chance to spend your life and develop friendships like Rich Scheben, I think you have done very, very well. So I want to thank you for filling in for us and just all the wonderful things you do. But I would like to read something.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. I'd like to read something since you mentioned cars, and this comes from one of our students. His name is Amit. Namaste, Vincent. Please convey my thanks to Mr. Scheben, who was sitting in for you the last Monday. He asked Dr. Shealy really useful and thought-provoking questions. My thoughts are identical to his on how worthless and environmentally irresponsible the game of golf and the golf course are. I greatly liked his joke based on Montana's picture postcard. Stating now the sport begins, where it features a grizzly coming out of the woods in the direction of some golfers on a course. I hope Mr. Scheben could provide a respite you could use for your farming activities. With best regards, Amit. So I wanted to read that to you, and I got that yesterday, and I sent Amit an email asking him if I could read that on the air, and he said yes. So with his permission, I did. And I really mean those words that I said. Rich,
well, I appreciate it, Vince.
I do have, yeah.
What we're doing here, it's all about being a patriot. It's all about our love for our country. It's all about the rule of law. It's about sticking up for people who don't have a voice. It's reminding people about the over 1 million combat soldiers who died for our freedoms and liberties. There's a lot of reasons why I do this, and at this particular point in history, we should all feel obligated to do what we're doing. I don't think what I'm doing is anything special, and I know you don't. We're looking at this as an obligation for our country. It's a way to serve our country at a very corrupt period in time, Vince.
When I was getting older, like in my 50s, I took care of our parents. They lived next door to us on the farm. Our farm adjoined theirs in Virginia. And they lived a couple hundred miles away before that, and we found a farm right next to ours, and we bought it as a family compound. And so I would see them many, many times a day. And I felt it was my duty, my honor, an obligation to take care of my parents every way that I could. And that's what I did. And I feel the same way about our country. I'm watching it go down the drain. It's really upsetting to me. But there's not much that we can do. Right now, there's rioting in Philadelphia. There was a man with a knife. He happened to be black. There was some kind of a domestic dispute. The police were called in. The police told him to drop the knife. Evidently, he didn't, or allegedly he didn't, and the police killed him. Now there are cars on fire in Philadelphia. The violence is escalating. That's just one more indication. So What the real story is, we don't know. But as we get closer to the selection, which is in a week, actually less than 1 week, I really feel, and I hope that I'm wrong, but I doubt it, that the violence will increase in the United States of America because of the selection. And there are people, you know, Rich, I'm 68. I have never seen in my lifetime, my life began, the first president in my lifetime who was selected was Dwight David Eisenhower. He was the first president during my lifetime. And from him all the way through the rest of the presidents, I have never seen fanaticism as I see now. And what I'm talking about is President Donald Trump. There are absolute Trump fanatics. They get in their speedboats and their power boats, and they get on the water, and they've got banners and flags. I've never seen anything like that. But before my time, there was a guy who was able to garner the support of fanatics, and his name was Adolf Hitler. I'm not saying President Donald Trump is Adolf Hitler. I'm just relating the two sets of fanaticism by the people toward a leader. Now, I think that it's wonderful to be loyal. I think it's wonderful to be supportive, but I don't think it is wonderful to turn your brain off and not pay attention. And it's not wonderful to say, yeah, but he's the president and he can lie and that's okay. It's not okay. So those are a few of my thoughts. And one thing I did want to mention, since you mentioned cars, is as the weather is getting really cold, class, it's really important that you keep your battery charged in your cars, trucks, and all the other vehicles that use those lead acid batteries. Because if your temperature gets below 32 degrees, the battery will freeze if it's not charged, fully charged. The greater the charge, the lower the temperature the battery can sustain. If the battery freezes, it will be permanently damaged. And the easiest way to tell if that happened is just feel the sides of the case, the narrow sides, the ends. Feel up and down with your fingers, and if it's bulged out, the battery plates have buckled and your battery is permanently destroyed. It's as simple as that. So keep your battery charged up and check your antifreeze, because if your antifreeze is not sufficient, if they didn't pay attention when whoever it was worked on it, if you're not down to typically minus 35, it's not enough. So you can buy a tester very inexpensively at the Chinese factory outlet or online, $5, $6, and you squeeze this bulb, you withdraw antifreeze into the bulb, and you read the protection that antifreeze mixture in your vehicle provides. If it's less than 35, it's probably not good. Florida, you're okay, and unless there's freezing temperature. But for most of us, minus 35 is where we want to be. Except where you are, Rich, you hit minus 29 yesterday, right?
Well, there was where my brother lives, outside of Missoula. He hit negative 19 a couple days ago. We were 2 degrees, and we're supposed to be back into the 40s and 50s for the next 7 to 10 days. So it just happens once in a while. You just have a deep freeze coming from the northeast, and but I need to comment on what you just said, Vince, if you don't mind, regarding fanaticism. I think the reason why there's such a following behind President Trump is because he's not taking a salary. He's taking a $1 salary. He's giving away his money to good causes, and people can see that he wants to represent freedom, liberty, and the rule of law. People can see that all these years they've been calling him a Nazi because you made that connection with Hitler. Now, and I've mentioned this many, many times and proved many, many times that we are involved in a totalitarian, tyrannical, authoritarian, fascist dictatorship. And I've proved it many, many times. For example, does Donald Trump want to control the media? No. He wants citizen journalists. He wants the new media, the alternative media, to give opinions. Does he want to control the police? No. The left wants to do it. These are all the things the Nazis did. They want to bring in brown shirts and push out the good cops. Do they want to? Who wants to eliminate due process? It's the left. not President Trump and the Patriots. How about government schools to control all these curriculum? The left doesn't want the parents control it. They don't want home schools. The left wants to basically brainwash and socially and politically indoctrinate today's children. So when you look at all the courts, the lawyers, the judges, all the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, all these so-called institutions, if you will, they've sold out the little people under the name of justice. Look at voter fraud and election fraud. This has nothing to do with the right. This is all being done by the left. So we have to act like citizens who expect the government to work for us and not all the way around. So we have to understand that this is a takedown, a takeover. This is a communist insurrection taking place live in history. So people, I think because of people like us in the alternative media and patriots around the country and the world who appreciate freedom and liberty and the rule of law, are starting to not just exponentially wake up, but stand up to the corruption. Well, I just wanted to put my 2 cents in on that. Vince, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure our class doesn't understand that I'm calling President Trump Adolf Hitler. I absolutely, positively am not. I'm just talking about fanaticism. People who blindly
I understand, but I just felt that because of what you said, I needed to add additional dialect to that.
There's a story about former Soviet leader Michael Gorbachev. And he blamed, this is a very interesting story, Rich, he blamed the fall of the former Soviet Union because of a television show. There was a guy who, with a videotape back in the 80s, got this soap opera called Dallas. And J.R. Ewing and, and the oil barons, that's the family of oil barons. The former Soviet Union people got a chance to see this, and they thought, gosh, that's how America lives? Man, oh man, they've got so much money, they can do whatever they want. And here we are, we're starving, and we're controlled. And that one video is blamed by Michael Gorbachev, the former leader of the Soviet Union, for the takedown, the collapse of an entire country, the USSR. And so if you think about that, and you extrapolate and you bring that across to Hollywood, and you look at what Hollywood has done over the years, telling people that crime pays, telling people that violence is okay, telling people that killing is okay, incest. I mean, all the homosexuality, all the things that Hollywood teaches people through their twisted messages, like, families that have, every color of the rainbow and every flavor of sexual preference. That's good because, that's who we are now. Well, when you bring those kinds of messages to the people over and over and over, it takes hold. And I believe that is part of the reason why the violence is escalating in the United States. People say there are those that have and those who don't have. And the ones who don't have want it. Whether they deserve it, whether they've earned it or not, they want it because they've seen it on television. And here we are. And I believe that Hollywood is part of the blame. Rich Scheben's with us. Rich, I know you have a lot to teach us today. And so, class, no calls today, please. Rich has more than he's going to be able to get through. And I'm going to sit back and enjoy the class. Rich?
Okay, well, thanks, Vince. Folks, the reason why I do this is because I just feel that this election is going to make or break the United States of America. See, right now, the powers that be behind the scenes who want to get in the blue team, they don't care about the vote. That's why I like to uncover all the corruption behind the scenes. They care about just counting the vote. And they care about, when they say they care about you or your group, they only care about your vote, your money, and how they can control you, manage you, distract you, dumb you down, and divide you by what group you're in. In other words, delegitimizing work, lowering the bars of standards and expectations for a job, making certain people feel entitled to play the victim group status card, demanding that the rule of law gets replaced by precedents so the people who get targeted and affected have no rights, restitution, or protection under the rule of law. And what they're really doing is enabling the big corrupt corporations. That means protecting them and giving them liability immunity, which adds to more fraud, illegitimacy, fascism, wealth inequality. And we have to bring to light the hypocrisies, the double standards, so we can say we need to stick together. We need to stop protecting our group, hyphen, and pronoun, because we're not playing chess or shooting pool and thinking 3, 4, 5 moves ahead. We're thinking one move ahead when we do this. Because when we allow precedents to take over the Bill of Rights and Constitution in every aspect of big corporations, big pharma, big tech, big banks, all the things that you've heard us talk about over the years, we are literally allowing these people to have wealth redistribution from the bottom 93% of the people to the top 1 to 2%. It's not about what group you come from. They don't give a damn. If we keep giving these people free lunch and allowing them to get away with divide and conquer strategies, there's no hope for the people. We're being used and played and conned and duped. The elite are poisoning us against ourselves. Now, Vince, before I get started on news in a flash, as you like to call it, I just want to mention when you were talking about collapse has many variables. It's a process. And the biggest reason for our collapse is that we have allowed a different set of rules, laws, and accountability based on what group you're in. This hides corruption for the elite and then blames each one of us. See, true patriots, they have the guts to be hated for saying the truth. But there's too many people out there who would prefer to be liked and would rather blow smoke up people's butt so they can get a pat on the head and get a cookie. We're at a point in history that we either work together or we die alone. Every American needs to play a role. Because if we don't stick up for each other and stand up for freedom, liberty, the rule of law, then we will see live time how all the sociopaths, the psychopaths, who have this need to be loved for fake nobility, fake benevolence, fake self-righteousness, fake philanthropy, the biggest mouths and the funding behind all the propaganda, hoaxes, false flags, lies, and gaslighting are the gazillionaires. That's why I always talk about laws of excess. Because even if Trump gets reelected, you're still going to have the Soroses, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Zuckers, the Zuckerbergs, the Gates, all these people who are going to have gazillions of dollars, and they are going to continue to delegitimize work, which delegitimizes America. And I'll get more into more details with news in a flash when we come back. But don't allow the greater good and the right thing to do, unquote, decide how you think and put you into the sheep follower column. We'll be right back, folks.
Rich Scheben's with us. And I just have a question to ask the class to think about. Think about this as you listen to Rich's class today. If there were a 10% chance that there will be violence and additional supply chain cracks, shortages after this election, which is in about a week, less than a week. If you believe there was a 10% chance, what would you do? What if you thought maybe there was a 20% chance, 30, 40, 50% chance? What would you do? Would you do anything, or would you just sit back? Would you meet with your family? Would you say, what do we do? Would you top off your gas tank? Would you fill up that red container so that you have additional gas for your chainsaw or your snowblower or your vehicle? Would you discuss with your sister, your brother, your in-laws, your outlaws, your mother, your father, your grandparents? Would you discuss circling the wagons and bringing the whole family together? Would you do that? Would you make sure that they have enough fuel to get there? Would you make sure that you knew the path that they were going to take? Should the cell system go down, the phone system? Would you make sure that their vehicle, would you make sure that your vehicle will make it if you're the one leaving? Are you going, or are they coming to you? What would you do if there were a 60 or 70 or 80% chance of that? What if there were a 100% chance of that? Background checks by the FBI in 2009 were about 800,000 a month. About 10 years ago, 11 years ago. In 2019, background checks for gun purchases were 4 million a month. Roughly estimating that's about 2% of Americans per month were having background checks done so they could buy a firearm from a dealer, either new or used. Now, outside of that, there are people who buy firearms, rifle, pistol, shotgun, revolver, at gun shows or privately. That's not included in those background checks. America is arming up. So ask yourself that question. What would you do if you thought there were a 10% chance that the violence will increase? Philadelphia is burning right now, parts of it, and it's getting worse. And it's not the only place. It's all over the country. Rich?
Okay, Vince. Well, what I want to do is I want to give updates on the Bidens, on election voter fraud, on COVID, because they're so applicable to this crucial period in time in our history right now. But before I do, you heard Schumer talking about, use the word denouncing and blaming everything on the Republicans. Well, I want you to think about all the Russia, the Ukraine, the China, the racketeering, the fake Mueller trial. All this cost you, the American taxpayer, hundreds of millions of dollars for this hoax theater, the fraud, the corruption, the coups against a sitting president, the spying against a president that was not only in office, but running for president, and before he was running for president. I want you to think about the fact that, gosh, I think I have an article in here somewhere about Hillary Clinton saying, it's somewhere, she's sick to her stomach. It's somewhere in my articles. She's sick to her stomach because, here it is, I'm sick to my stomach over a possible Trump reelection. Well, Hillary, I know about 250 million people who are sick to their stomach because of the corruption that you did, like basically creating this theater and buying it, bought and paid for, the Russian dossier, you and the DNC, and Barack Obama orchestrating it, pulling the strings at the top, and you basically weaponizing the DOJ, the FBI, and the CIA, which now has zero credibility, to protect what you did. I know about 250 million Americans who are sick to their stomach that you're not in prison. Now, that being said, I'm going to go to my news in a flash here, and I wish we had more than 2 hours for a show, folks, so I'm just... unfortunately, the reality is we don't, and I'm just going to go through as many headlines as possible with a few comments here and there. First article, Biden whistleblower Tony Bobulinski holds press conference. I'm sure the majority of our listeners heard about that. Quote, you'll bury everyone involved. Bobulinski's recorded Biden operatives begging him to stay quiet. Well, from what I'm reading, this hero, this whistleblower, this patriot, Bobulinski, is going to come out with real facts, not subjective emotional opinion, not propaganda and hoaxes, but real documented facts. And I want you to remember what I just said here regarding the quote of the Biden operatives. You'll bury everyone involved begging him to stay quiet, unquote. Next article. Hunter Biden, explicit sexual photos with underage girls, including his 14-year-old niece. I believe that's not just pedophile stuff, that's called incest as well. Now, with all this stuff that's been coming out that we've given on this channel, and many, many alternative media patriots have been giving this information for months, have you ever noticed why the mainstream media is still censoring the New York Post, the last credible newspaper in the country? Now, and I want to bring up one thing too, folks. All these trips to Ukraine, to China, to Russia, where the Bidens went, including Biden's son, Hunter, you know what their getaway vehicle was? Air Force Two. Air Force Two. That was their getaway vehicle. That means you paid for all this. You ever wonder why the DOJ, the FBI, and the CIA is slow-walking all investigations and not declassifying things that they should be? Folks, this is all people who are paid off to stab the American people in the back, or they've been blackmailed. And I don't know what the ratio is of people who are bought and paid for or people who are blackmailed. But this is done to hide the Democrat deep state corruption. That's why everything that they are calling us, they have, not only are they doing, they have already done. That's why you always hear me saying, oh, well, obviously we're all controversial, racist, bigots, sexist, misogynist, conspiracy theorists, intolerant, violent, hater, anti-this, ism this, is that, phobe. It's basically code for covering up the crimes that they've done and at the same time dividing us. Do you think these words even have meaning anymore? Anti-ismist phobe, anti-ismist phobe, anti-ismist phobe. It's fifth grade stupid. This is where we are right now. And this is why President Trump has so much support, is because people are waking up exponentially. They're tired of it. They want their freedoms back. They want their liberties back. They want the rule of law back. Because the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, is made to protect the little people. Or else we're going to have what I talked about, a totalitarian, fascist, dictator, communist insurrection state. Where only the people who have theirs, the people who have theirs, will have the biggest mouths and the greatest freedoms, and you will not have anything. You're going to be shoved in urban, suburban America, living in little boxes, being told what to do, what to say, and if you don't say the right thing, you're obviously a hater. This is how they're doing it. It's so obvious, and I've given thousands of examples of this. Next article. Overwhelmingly criminality. Biden, more sources coming forward, signing affidavits. What this article is stating is that more people are saying, I'm fed up, I'm going to sign an affidavit that shows the Biden's corruption. Next article. Hunter Biden laptop linked to FBI money laundering investigation. Oh, no wonder why everything's being slow-walked on investigations and declassifications. You see how you connect the dots, folks? Next article. Biden insider claims he was the recipient of the email. Next article. More Biden family China deals. this is a quote, don't mention Joe being involved. Insider provides trove of documents to Senate investigations. Next article, Kamala Harris rally in North Carolina draws just 7 people. Why is that? Because the people are waking up exponentially. Next article, Hunter Biden business venture lists Kamala Harris as key contact. Oh, more dots being connected. Next article, Dems, Schumer, and Wyden beg the FBI Director Wray, who's obviously very compromised, by the way, that was my little sidebar, not to investigate the Bidens before the election. Folks, you can't make this stuff up, and as I always give my disclaimer for doing this, these are published articles in the public domain. I know you think I'm bidding for a writing job on the new Twilight Zone episodes, but that is not the case. These are real articles. These are real facts. They have documents showing all of it. Next article, Hunter's business partner warned, don't mention Joe's name in the text message. They are paranoid. Next article, Joe resorts to come on defense 8 times. Have you guys ever heard of Joe Biden literally saying, come on, or come on, man? So when you get arrested, when you get pulled over for a speeding ticket, maybe you get a DUI, maybe you do something you shouldn't, just tell the cop and the judge, come on, man. Let's see if you can get away with that, folks. Just give it a try. Who knows? Maybe there's a precedent now because Joe Biden has said it so many times to defer blame. Hey, it could be a precedent. See, precedents could be an advantage. The heck with the rule of law. Let's just do precedents. Next article. Was Barr paid by the establishment to protect Hillary, Obama, Comey, Brennan, and a passel of Obama regime DOJ, FBI, and CIA officials from Russiagate indictments? Do we really need to answer that, or can I just say, duh? Next article. This is funny. One of Joe Biden's secret email names is Peter Henderson. Look it up. And, of course, Hillary Clinton, she just said she's sick to her stomach over a possible Trump re-election. I think I carried that a few moments ago. I think 250 million Americans are sick to the stomach that she's not in jail. And we'll be back after this break, folks. We really appreciate you being here and being patriots. Thank you.
Rich, you mentioned Peter Henderson. And Tom Clancy, as an author, has written probably 26 books by himself. And there are other books that have his name associated with them, and that number is over 100. So at least 26 books were written by him. And there's a character that uses the name in his novels, Peter Henderson. And Peter Henderson is a mole, a KGB mole, who infiltrated the U.S. government. And I believe you're referring to the alleged use of the name Peter Henderson as Jumpin' Joe, the plagiarist Biden's email pseudonym. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
One of them, from what I understand.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go back to News in a Flash, folks. Before I start, I want to congratulate Justice Amy Coney Barrett for her confirmation to the Supreme Court, and also congratulate Clarence Thomas, who sworn her in. You've been a true American patriot, Justice Thomas, and we really appreciate you. Okay, moving on to articles. Chelsea Handler lectures 50 Cent, I think he's a rapper, for supporting Trump. She had to remind him that he was a black person. You know, it's amazing to me, a little sidebar here, how the powers that be on the left are constantly showing their hand of how much disrespect and how much they degrade and insult minority communities. It's unbelievable. Don't vote for him if you don't vote for me, you ain't black, Biden said. Biden and Obama put blacks in prison at an unbelievable rate for nonviolent crimes. They started the KKK. They started the eugenics Planned Parenthood with Margaret Sanger admitting that they need to curb the black population. Obama and Biden doubled black unemployment where Trump is reversing it dramatically. You know, you can't make this stuff up, folks. The insults to minority communities in general by the Democrats is just over the top. All right, I have too many articles, so I'm going to move on here. Next article. Our problem, this is a great man. Quote, our problem hasn't been with white supremacists, it's been with black elitists. And this was a quote by Burgess Owens, who's running for Congress in Utah. This is a great American. He has guts. He's an ex-NFL player. He's extremely intelligent. We need to get this man into Congress in Utah. Please, for those of you listening in Utah, please pass the word around. The left even tried to misrepresent that one time or several times he was running in Colorado. That is not the case. They want to disinform. They want to create propaganda. They don't want to give information at all from the mainstream media. We have to be aware of it. Please vote Burgess Owens into Congress in Utah. Next article. This is very disturbing. Special report and a video report as well. Diary of Joe Biden's daughter alleges years of sexual molesting in the Biden family. This is, again, another example of not just pedophilia, but incest. And this is a published article in the public domain. I am not making this up. None of the articles do I make up. These are all things that I glean off the alternative media from very credible, verified sites. Next article. We need to pack the Supreme Court and create more district courts. This is what Nancy Pelosi has recently said. This is very disturbing, folks, because it's almost like a little fifth grader who doesn't get their way. They go in the corner, they sit in the corner, they suck on their thumb, and they hold their breath until mommy and daddy gives them a cookie or allows them to do what they say. They are literally tearing apart everything that has made America rule of law, that's made us great. Next article. Pennsylvania congressman calls on Joe Biden to apologize for calling Trump supporters chumps. Hey, you listeners out there, Joe Biden says you're a chump. Not to mention the fact that they call you a controversial racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, conspiracy theory, intolerant, violent hater, with an anti in front of every word, is a misphobe in the back of every word, right? Not to mention the fact that they call you irredeemables and deplorables. Basically, any demeaning, discrediting word they call us. So it's really no news. Next article. 4 people show up to hear Obama. 4. For those of you who think math is white supremacy like the left says, that's the number before 5 and after 3. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. And what about Democrat Mazie Hirono, who says, she says just something despicable about her vote with the Amy Coney Barrett Supreme Court confirmation vote. What a piece of trash. Our government is in disarray and it's spiraling down. These guys are parasites. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Rich Scheben's with us. Rich, it seems that one of the 2 people running for office has disappeared. Kamala Harris. Has she disappeared?
I don't know, but Joe Biden apparently disappeared, and his people told him to get back on the campaign trail because he said so many lies, and President Trump is showing not just audio but video of him saying the opposite. So they're like, we better get him back out there. So he can't hide in his basement too much. I have no idea where she is, but I think they're starting to smell the coffee.
Yeah. So when it comes to voting, I get the impression that you are not going to be voting for the Harris-Biden ticket.
Did I really give that impression?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, of course, I'm joking here. When you have this much corruption with the Bidens, and you have this much false information with everything from COVID to election and voter fraud, when you're planning on literally spinning away the freedoms and liberties from the people, just like Joe Biden, they're spending billions of dollars on saying Trump's going to get call for cuts to Social Security and Medicare. He's saying no. And then Trump's showing videos of Joe Biden calling for cuts to Social Security and Medicare. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. I mean, people are waking up, Vince. Biden puts on a major spin on these tiny crowds he's getting. He hired Bon Jovi to play to bring people in. Well, I hear there was 12 people and 7 pumpkins that were there to hear Bon Jovi. Well, it could have been 7 Democrats identifying as pumpkins. I'm not sure. Even Cher was asked to perform, and I remember, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I remember what she said, something like, "Well, who are we going to vote for?" And the few people in the audience basically just went, It was a sight to see. And then she was going to sing, and her people put on the wrong song, but she wasn't even going to sing. She was going to fake it. She was going to lip sync it. Everything to do with the Democrats and the left is a total fraud. Everything. And I want to mention at least one more thing about Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden associate, this is an article, reveals $200 million invested by Russian oligarch. You have to remember all of the lies, the gaslighting, the propaganda media saying that President Trump literally did all this stuff with Russia and China and Ukraine and all these other countries, and it was the Bidens and the Democrat Party. Folks, you can't make this up. Hunter Biden's businesses didn't just get foreign investments from our enemies, but also confiscated hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars in the form of subsidies, loans, and bailouts by selling favors and access to Joe Biden. Bribery, blackmail, treason, this is what this stuff is. All the emails prove it. The emails prove it. Dollars and money with China to be held by the big guy, which is identified as Joe Biden. Bribery, pay-to-play, racketeering. This shows deep ties to Russia, Ukraine, China, and many other countries. Hunter Biden got dollars and favors for bringing people into the White House. He was a corruption broker. This is illegal as hell. Again, they don't care about the vote. They care about who's counting the vote. Our nation, the United States of America, right now is on the ballot regarding freedom, liberty, and the rule of law. All of it is at stake. And I want to go over, Vince, if it's okay, some of the voter fraud, election fraud that I've done over the last several months. It just doesn't stop. It's unbelievable.
Let me just ask one question. Here's a scenario. I've been sitting here thinking as you've been going through these things, and I've been putting together pieces of what you've been saying for months and years. So here's a hypothetical scenario. Let's say Jumpin' Joe, the plagiarist, is selected. Okay? Next week. Let's say he's selected. And then let's say President Trump is so frosted with the corruption, the fraud, the manipulation, the deception, and so forth, the treason, the sedition that he believes has happened, and he arrests Jumpin' Joe for treason. And his son, Hunter, if he can be found. Is that a possibility? What are your thoughts?
Well, and this is one of the reasons for the disgust of the American people regarding the behaviors of the DOJ, the FBI, and the CIA, which is obviously bought and paid for. Not declassifying information, slow walking, all these things that we've talked about today and every week. Now, that's why I'm going to go over some articles regarding election and voter fraud. And this is why people are very disturbed. And this is one of the reasons why people should be coming out in mass and voting in person, because the whole system is fraudulent. And this is why now that we have a fully staffed Supreme Court, and people are going to say, well, it's heavy Republican 5-4. And yes, I did say that because there's a lot of evidence that shows that John Roberts flew on the pedophile express to Epstein Island. Obviously, he is bought and paid for or blackmailed. So, let me mention a few articles real quick here. U.S. Postal Service was put to a test by Fox News ahead of the 2020 elections. More than 2% of the votes were lost. Next article. Politics, Michigan election workers told to dispose of ballots, expel poll watchers. This is a recent article. Next article. Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Ballots can't be tossed out over mismatching signature. They're admitting, Pennsylvanians admitting, by the few people at the top, that all those millions of people who live in Pennsylvania, your vote doesn't count, you're a deplorable, you're irredeemable, you're a chump, and we don't need any validating of signatures for the ballot. It can be ballots that are totally fake and false. It's unbelievable. Next article, Fourth Circuit strikes again, allows North Carolina voter fraud. Next article, piles of mail stolen. On the side of the road, ballot thefts reported in 2 Portland metro suburbs. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Detroit leaks expose the voter fraud plan to steal Michigan. Next article, San Francisco tech CEOs emails 10 million consumers urging them to vote for Biden. Because the big tech, they make so much money under the table to control the narrative that we don't even have antitrust authorities anymore. Big tech, big corporations have unchecked power for all and any corruption. We have allowed monopolies to nefarious illegal investments to making their executives wealthy with no productivity, no innovation, no new hiring, no R&D. This is very dangerous when we're giving big corporations, big tech, big pharma, big banks, we're allowing them to privatize and capitalize their gains and socialize their losses. That means you pay for their losses through taxes and inflation. We literally have a fascist, crony, feudalist, corporate welfare program all rolled out in one. That's why they're saving the zombie companies. I've talked about stock buybacks till I'm blue in the face, bailouts till I'm blue in the face. And this is why the little people are ranking up the delinquencies, the defaults, the bankruptcies, the homelessness. Folks, this is why we do this job. And we volunteer for it. Next article, bins of ballots found in dumpster. Next article. You're going to love this one, folks. I literally had to listen to Joe Biden to make sure this was authentic. Okay, I try to read as many of these articles as possible to verify the authenticity of this. In bizarre Freudian slip, Joe Biden, bragged about assembling, and I'm quoting here now, the most extensive voter fraud organization in history. Let me repeat that. I know this sounds like I'm making this up, but you don't have to look very far. It's on this is a Zero Hedge article. In bizarre Freudian slip, Biden brags about assembling the most, quote, the most extensive voter fraud organization in history. These mail-in ballots, folks, they have to be discarded. We need to clean up election and voter fraud and have IDs that correlate especially to U.S. citizenry. It's not hard to do. They weaponize the IRS against us. Why is this hard to do? They know who all of us are. And let me real quick go over some blue cases or some of the COVID articles that are very disturbing. First article, are sick patients being misdiagnosed with COVID? Flu cases suddenly dropped 95 to 98%. Remember when Trump brought in the hospital ships to the Democrat states, infected nursing homes, and literally murdered our seniors to raise the numbers, to create more fear, to control the people, and didn't even barely use these hospital ships? I just want to remind everybody. Next article, over 60% of May through August Chinese virus deaths, CCP virus deaths, occurred in health care settings. Is that not disturbing, folks? We know that hospitals have gotten big money for COVID deaths, big money for shoving ventilators down people's throats, which has killed so many people. Next article. And I wish I had more time. I apologize, folks. It's just, we can talk about one of these for 2 hours, one of these articles. Next article, volunteer in COVID vaccine study is dead. Volunteer. Next article, COVID lockdowns just killed 4 Australian babies. Next article, suicide spike 100% in Wisconsin. That's one state, just Wisconsin, suicide spike. These people who have locked us down, who have delivered this virus, should be arrested for murder, especially these blue Democrat states who murdered our seniors. We'll be right back after the break, folks.
Rich Scheben with us. Now, Rich, it's entirely possible that we will end up in a constitutional crisis with not knowing what to do as a result of this election. I mean, for example, if, as I mentioned before, if the president, Donald Trump, while he's still president, between this election in November next week and January when he would leave office, should Joe Biden, the plagiarist, be selected, he has a little bit of time to arrest some people. He literally does. And if he does, and if he arrests the guy who was selected, Jumpin' Joe, if he were selected, that would put us into a constitutional crisis, I believe. And this is kind of unprecedented. So we're facing an extension of the Second American Revolution, the Second Civil War, combined with the Second American Revolution, combined with the constitutional crisis, combined with power outages, food shortages, supply chain breaking, people being locked down and losing their minds, the police against the BLM against the Trump supporters. It's almost like a free-for-all. It's almost like Mad Max. And it's getting worse every day. It's not getting any better, as far as I can tell. And a couple more people getting shot by the police will just push us right over the edge all by itself. And it's not hot out anymore. You know, people are doing this in cold weather. And cold weather normally puts a damper on people going out and watching from the porch and protesting from the porch and marching down the streets. You know, because it's nice and warm, you can wear your flip-flops and your pajamas and go out there and protest, right? Well, now it's getting cold. And the protests are still happening. I really don't see much lightening up of this. I keep seeing it getting worse and worse and worse. And do you think what I mentioned, that hypothetical scenario of the president arresting people like Jumpin' Joe and Hillary and some other people who have been involved in the crime syndicates, do you think that's far-fetched? Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, I think everything's on the table right now. I think we're in totally uncharted waters, Vince. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm showing the people how the media, how the institutions, how big government, big corporations have literally sacrificed all credibility. It's just like this study right here. A major scientific study that came out of Denmark was rejected by the JAMA, New England Journal of Medicine, Lancet. We all know Lancet's been bought and paid for because it proves masks don't work. It proved masks don't work. And we all know that 90% of the so-called positive tests are false positive. So, basically they want lies to be published, the powers that be, and they want tracking and tracing and surveillance and censorship because they want to control the people. And people are waking up to this. Like I said, people are waking up exponentially. Do you really want to go into a restaurant and hotel and then all of a sudden you have police come to your door and say you're being arrested or quarantined or thrown in internment camps or worse because you were in the same hotel or restaurant because of the electronic tracking that somebody else was? Do you really want that? No. That's not freedom. That's not liberty. That's not rule of law. That's made up. People want to see the lack of credibility. That's why. What do you think I'm doing here? That's why I'm saying all this stuff. You hear about Biden and Harris. They're a great team. Brain freeze says 200 million. Biden said 200 million Americans dead for the virus, and Harris said we're looking at over 220 million Americans who just died in the last several months. This is totally made up. It's lies. It's BS. It's propaganda. It's to create fear to control the people. This is why.
Rich, let's make sure our class heard what you said. 220 million class died. If that was said, that would be 90% of Americans dead. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
I'm quoting them.
No, I know that. What I'm saying, Rich, I'm not disagreeing with you one iota. What I'm saying is saying that and having Americans believe that 220 million have died is ridiculous. You have to have your brain unplugged to buy that nonsense. 90% of Americans have not died, period.
No, first of all, they're admitting 200,000, and then the CDC came out and said that you can only really count 6%. You got to take away 94% because a lot of these people had comorbidities. A lot of these people were very elderly. A lot of these people were dying from motorcycle accidents and car wrecks and flus, like I mentioned earlier, where the flu is now has been eliminated because it's all going into COVID death.
We'll be right back. Rich Evans with us. I think I heard at the top of the hour, the bottom of the hour news that Chuck Schumer said that our fundamental rights are going to be removed, something akin to that, by the confirmation of Justice Barrett. I'm a little confused. How are our fundamental rights going to be removed by the confirmation of a Supreme Court justice? How does that happen? Did she say something that I must have missed?
No, the reason why he said that is because Judge Amy Barrett is a happily married woman, and she's not saying how much she hates men. She has plenty of children her own who are well-behaved, good citizens, and she's adopted people from other parts of the world. She's basically done all the things she should do, and she's gotten opportunities through hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications. That's not supposed to be the way it works. She's supposed to be controversial. She's supposed to be sexist. She's supposed to be a conspiracy theorist. She's supposed to be a hater. Anti-Islamist phobe. She wants somebody willing to cover up the crimes that the Democrats and the deep state has done. They want somebody in there who is going to divide the American people by what group we're in. And she's not footing the bill. Vince, I know we're short on time. We have less than half an hour. You mentioned to me, and I apologize for not, I just had so many articles, and I'm going to not mention so many more because I don't have time. You asked me about who I'm voting for. May I address that?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And as always, I appreciate you allowing me to exercise my First Amendment rights. Okay, Biden said that during his last debate with President Trump that no one lost their insurance under Obamacare. I know tons of people who not only lost insurance, not only couldn't see their doctor, but their premiums went through the roof and they couldn't even afford it, and they actually had to decide to get rid of it and pay the penalty during tax time. So everything he said, basically what the Democrats are doing is saying that their constituents are idiots and they're not going to follow up and verify what they're saying. That's code for what he's doing. And he says he never opposed fracking. Holy moly! It doesn't get a bigger lie than that. There are so many videos of Joe Biden opposing fracking, opposing fossil fuels, which we got to end that name because it doesn't even make any sense. Basically, they want to put hey, I live off-grid, folks. I'm all for solar. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for being green, but it's not going to power 350 million Americans. It's not. It's going to be rolled out blackouts. It's done to reduce population. It's done to make the little people, the bottom 93%, more sick, less freedom, less liberty, and more controlled. Another thing he said, he was talking about illegal aliens, how they show up for these so-called asylum hearings after being caught and released. Well, Joe's wrong about that too. 90% of them don't show up. They don't. And Biden and Obama, they have done so many negative things to this country besides divide and conquer strategies. They've legalized many street drugs. They're encouraging prisoner release into the cities who are murderers and rapists and violent criminals. They're renaming streets and places in the name of cancel culture. They're renaming sports teams in the name of some type of political correctness. They're pro-tearing down monuments and memorials and history. They're pro-murder, rape, and mayhem and rioting and looting and arson and Marxism and communism and socialism and dictatorships and tyranny and authoritarianism. I mean, I've given so many examples. They're pro-activist judges, eliminating the rule of law for precedents. They're pro-spying on American citizens with big tech. They're pro-race baiting. They're pro-war on cops and disrespecting the rule of law to bring in brown shirts, black shirts, and the Red Guard to take over, to eliminate everything so the elite can control everything and everybody, and we're living in tiny little shacks while the elite are flying around the world and doing everything with no consequences at all. Therefore, weaponizing our intelligence agencies, as I've mentioned today and many times, our DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA. We've given uncountable amount of articles on this. Weaponizing the IRS, creating sanctuary cities and sanctuary states where basically you could be a murderer or a rapist, no vetting, come into this country, sneak into one of these states or cities, and basically rob and rape and do everything you want. Therefore, leaking of classified information, therefore, ballot harvesting. How many articles have we given over the past few months of how these they're literally admitting, like in Pennsylvania, like I mentioned today, they're admitting that they're going to steal the election. They're not even matching signatures. There's no validity. There's no credibility to what they're doing. Oh, that's because everybody's an anti-Islamist phobe. Anti-Islamist phobe. Anti-Islamist phobe. Is that still working, folks? They're for open borders. They're for no cash bail. They're for the Green New Deal. Now, for those of you listening in Montana who heat with firewood like I do, we're going to be penalized for carbon taxes, for heating with wood on our own property, harvesting wood from our own property. You can't make this stuff up. Shredding the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, redefining marriage, destroying anything to do with family, embracing rioters like BLM and Antifa, and we talked about where the funding comes from, the George Soroses. We talked about how they're money laundering activities and fronts, disrespecting the flag, the Pledge of Allegiance, the national anthem, basically allowing males to participate in female activities and vice versa, destruction of the Boy Scouts, all this made-up climate change policies, but they don't talk about the solar activity. They don't talk about polar shifts. I don't talk about the fact that there was a land bridge from Asia to North America. The fact that the Middle East used to be a tropical paradise. All the science is bought and paid for on their side, and they ignore this real science. So all this climate change, fear-mongering, and lies, and bought and paid for bogus science claims, they never end. How about Clinton pay for play corruption? How about the Biden pay for play corruption? You think there's been enough articles, including today, mentioned about that? How about the destruction of evidence? How about all these Russian, Ukraine hoaxes? How about the phony impeachment and the Mueller theater that you paid for, folks, by the token of hundreds of millions of dollars? You know what? We can talk about all the corruption and manipulation. There's not enough time on the show. And I know we only have a few, like 10 or 15 minutes left of airtime, Vince. And I apologize for hogging so much of the airtime today.
Which I've got one question.
I feel we're so close to this election. I just want to wake up every person I possibly can. And like we always say on USA Prepares, folks, don't believe a word we say. Please read, research, and verify. This is the new America. If we want to be free, each individual citizen must do their own reading and researching. You have to realize that President Trump is doing everything for $1 per year. He's put his life and his family's life, safety, prosperity, everything on the line for the rule of law and the little people. Okay, is he perfect? Hell no. Am I perfect? God, no.
The best thing that could happen would be if he were selected with the choices that we have at this moment, and that he would do what he promised and start firing people all around him. That would be like the best thing that could happen. But you mentioned something I just would like to comment on. So you heat with wood and we heat with wood. And this morning I was looking at the thermostat in the house and I was looking at the thermostat outside. I was thinking, gosh, it's getting cold. And if I want to turn the heat up, somebody's got to put wood in the fire. Somebody's got to do that. Or turning the heat up isn't going to do any good. So, and if we didn't have the wood before that, you know, getting it all summer long and last year, we wouldn't be able to put the wood in the fireplace or you know, the firebox to have heat today. So when you mentioned heating with wood and being penalized for heating with wood, that makes me crazy. Not that you said it, just the thought of somebody telling me that I'm going to be fleeced or you're going to be fleeced, or any of us is going to be fleeced for heating with wood that is on our own property. You know, not cutting down trees, just picking up felled wood and putting it to use. And contrasting that with people who are so greedy, they will just hop on an airplane. They'll say, I don't know, what do you want to do? I don't know, what do you want to do? I don't know. Let's go out of the country. We'll go to the islands. Let's go to Mexico. Let's go to Spain. Let's go. What we'll do is we'll take 4 days and we'll just relax. We'll sit on the beach and we'll read. And they'll hop on an airplane and they'll burn fuel, poison the environment, pollute the air, and yet they're going to beat us up for heating our homes? Really? That makes me crazy.
That's why we need practice what we preach laws. That's why I talk about hypocrisy and double standards by the Democrat Party all day long. You know, it's just like, remember Vince, when I mentioned those inflation charts? I talked about education, car insurance, and health care, how all these illegal immigrants are coming in here, and I gave specific, I'm not going to have time to do all that right now, but when I mentioned about illegal aliens, 90% not showing up for asylum hearings that Joe Biden said they all show up for, we have to pay for all this through cost shifting. There's a word that needs to be discussed more, and it's called vetting. If I let's say you didn't know me, Vince, okay? Let's say you never saw my face, and I showed up at your door singing 1970s disco songs, had a crack pipe in the side of my mouth, and I was trying to sell you and your family child porn videos. Would you allow me in your house, or would you kick me in the butt all the way down your driveway?
You would be, someone who did that would be marched down the driveway.
Exactly.
And it wouldn't be just me. there would be many
fleeced,
of us.
not just for carbon footprint. We're being fleeced for everything. Okay, they are breaking America down, destroying the rule of law, and this is why they are delegitimizing work. They have to make certain people entitled to play the victim group status card. They have to make them subconsciously demand to lower the bars of standards and expectations for a job based on what group you're in. Because when hard work, proven results, and qualifications don't matter, just like getting firewood, people think, oh, wow, you're so lucky you can burn firewood in your cabin. Well, let me tell you, it's hard work. You got to cut the tree down, you got to bucket, you might have to split it depending on the size of your stove. And then you got to haul it out of the woods into some type of vehicle, then on your porch. It's work.
And you've got to let it season for at least 9 months to get the moisture out of it. And you have to cover it up so moisture doesn't enter it and rain doesn't enter it. And then you have to put it in the firebox. And then you have to shovel the ashes. And then rinse and repeat. And how much does it take? We've got a 26-foot long trailer, gooseneck trailer, and it takes several of them. But Scheben, I've just got a quick question for you. Yesterday, it's kind of off topic, but yesterday we generated, I looked at the meter, we generated 1 kilowatt worth of electricity, just enough to run this broadcast for the 2 hours, period. Nothing else, no lights, nothing else. When you get up in the morning, you have to ration your electricity. Are you in the dark right now? Well, not this moment, but when you started this broadcast today, were you in the dark, literally in the dark, doing the broadcast with your computer on?
Sometimes I will either use a headlamp or turn on lights above my desk, which I have right now, and because it's kind of cloudy out there right now. But we had last few days I've gotten 100% filled up on my solar because it's been so clear, and we had this high pressure system. But now that it's going to get warmer, at this time of year, warm temperatures are also associated with cloud cover. So it all depends on what I do, Vince. And what's nice about deep cycle lead acid batteries, as long as I keep it above 80% of full and I fill up every 7 to 8 days, I'm okay.
Yeah, the reason I asked is I just want our class to understand that sometimes some of the things that we go through in order to do this broadcast, I'm not saying woe is us. What I am saying is that we live under constraints. You just don't flip on a light switch and have everything work. It actually has to be planned out. So if Rich is if it's overcast, he's got to figure out whether he's going to use the generator to charge up the batteries or he's just going to be in the dark. I mean, those are the choices that we have. And I just want to let you know that although we're going through these kinds of things now because of our lifestyle, by choice, you guys may have to be going through these by force as the supply chain collapses. So back to that what if it's 10% chance that it's going to get worse, next week? What are you going to do? Are you going to have that meeting with your family? Back to you, Rich.
Well, yeah, that's why, I've mentioned many times how these blue Democrat governors and mayors have literally threatened their own constituents and say, if you don't do what I tell you, I'm going to shut off your water and power. Basically, they're preempting what they're going to do. This is tyranny. It's forced tyranny. And here's an article right here regarding Google and election interference, and that's why I talk about how we have no antitrust authorities. Big corporations and big check basically have unchecked power for any and all corruption. Here's an article right here. Deposing Biden refers to Doug Emhoff as Kamala's wife. I mean, do you guys really want this guy to be your president? Really? Really? I mean, Vince, I do. Here we are with 1 week left, and I just don't know what else to do to convince the people that it's not a left-right paradigm, that this is a takeover, a communist insurrection by the most wealthiest people in the world, not just the country, to basically globalize everything and eliminate our rights and hide their crimes. And this is why a lot of this is being done. because they need to delegitimize work. It's unbelievable how the people have been used with all. Vince, how many articles over the 9 years, how many examples when I talked about creating money out of thin air, fractional reserve lending, welfare for the rich, stock buybacks, I've incorporated deflation, stagflation, inflation into my monologues. I've talked about the shuffling of money and creating accounting for non-productive purposes. I've talked about all the non-legitimate money. I've talked about fake loans and fake GDP and fake price discovery and valuations. And I mean, I have spent. How many examples have I shown that it's not about equality, fairness, tolerance, and diversity? They don't care about your.
Let me come.
How many articles have I given examples to show that it's the money going from the little people to the aristocracy? How many?
I'd like to comment on that. So, class,
yeah, sure,
I may say, you may, class, you may hear me say, I'm going to sit back and enjoy the class, okay? And what I do is I mute my microphone, and I sit back and I listen intently. But here's what really happens. I have read probably most of the material that Rich has read without Rich saying to me, although we do talk, I've already read it. He and I read a lot of the same material without pre-discussion, like read this. And so I'm aware of the things that he's talking about. I'm aware of what the articles and if I heard him say something that I thought was incorrect, I wouldn't just sit back and just let him say it. I would comment on it. And what you have heard is that when I do comment, it's adding exclamation points. It's not saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not true. You don't hear me say that. Why? Because Rich has been speaking the truth for all of these years. All of these years. So I just wanted to add that as an exclamation point. That is my point of reference, my frame of reference, which I really appreciate what you're doing, the time that you're spending, and I wanted to let the class know that sometimes you get up in the middle, in the dark to be on the air, and so does Gwyneth. Mm-hmm. So thank you, instructors, for what you do. Rich Scheben, thank you.